Alright, Shalom Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Alright, Hebrews, I know I ain't put out a little history for the Israelite Brotherhood community in a little while. Been busy, got to work to eat and so forth. And man, even though Almighty Allah done blessed me, man, to where I've been able to get this history in, I still got to get out there and do some work. But check this out, Hebrews. Man, I had seen the news, and also this one of the Israelite Brotherhood members sent this email, man, about how a missile went to Dimona from Syria. Now, I got to thinking, man, it's Israelites in Dimona, and we know that those Israelites in Dimona, man, it's awful, man. It's awful, man. And it's awful how they being done and how they got done. And that's because they left on their own. And it wasn't Almighty Yah bringing us out of captivity. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. All right, man, it wasn't Almighty Yah bringing the Israelites out of captivity when those Israelites escaped in the 70s and made it to Liberia. Man, they made it to Liberia. Man, and then they made it on over there into the Promised Land. They snuck across the borders and got into the Promised Land. It don't make no difference how they got there, but they got there. But this the thing is, they let the Jews set them up in the desert. In Dimona in the desert next to the nuclear plants. Now, I said, in my mind that, they gonna do that. They gonna do that because if they go back, man, without no real history and no real understanding of what happened to us Israelites, then they gonna get tossed up and dogged out. You see, and then that's what's been happening when they got stuck in the desert near the nuclear plants, because that's not fulfilling prophecy when they come back. All us Israelites got to leave captivity from everywhere are so-called African American or descendant from the transatlantic slave trade is around this men around the United States and around the world, period. We in the United States military. So you got Israelites everywhere. And then if this country was to collapse and fall, them Israelites could be stuck in them lands. And how those Israelites, men, want to go to Jerusalem, men, if and when America fall. You know what I'm saying? We're going to want to go home because, some of us know that we Israelites. Even the transatlantic slave trade descendants that don't know the history, they understand that they Israelites. You know what I'm saying? If you was to go ask one of the Israelites that's called African Americans, you know what I'm saying? Whether if they the children of Israel, they gonna hair up and tell you, yeah, that's just something that they know. That's inside them. Alright? Those Israelites that made it, that escaped captivity, and made it all the way over here to Liberia, they got dogged out in Liberia. That's why I say we got to go back to Africa. And man, I pray one day that the Israelite Brotherhood, man, can lead the way and we can establish a colony in Liberia and get back some justice. Them Hamites, man, it's a long story dealing with them Hamites and how we been done and stuff, and how some Israelites think that we the Hamites and that we Africans and stuff. And that's what these Israelites are suffering from that made it to the Promised Land. They think that we some African Edenic Israelites, or some old title, man, that they got for us, African Israelites. No, man, it's only one Israelite. You know what I'm saying? If you're an Israelite, you're an Israelite. All these different titles about where we went to and all that, man, we can't attach them to our Israelite heritage. But check this out, Israelites. Those Israelites, man, that went to the Promised Land, that escaped captivity without Almighty Yah bringing us all out of captivity, and how some of us escaped captivity and made it back to the promised land. Well, them Jews, knowing that they come back to the promised land, that they didn't come back to the promised land with no correct history. So, the Jews gonna set them where they want to set them, and then where they set them at, they set the Israelites, in the desert next to the nuclear plants. Now that's some messed up stuff. Now we dealing with some treacherous people. Now we dealing with some treacherous people that do not want to relinquish the Israelite history, because if they do, then they gonna be seen for who they are. They using the Israelite heritage to hide their true identity, and it's a cold thing. But look, a Syrian missile exploded in the southern town, in the southern island, Israeli military, in Thursday, in the Israeli military said in the incident that triggered warning sirens near the secretive Dimona nuclear reactor. They got them Israel, you can't be staying nowhere near no nuclear reactors. You can't stand nowhere near no nuclear reactors in Israeli strike in Syria. They've been bombing them Syrians, them Jews and stuff, because the Syria is getting on with Russia. You know what I'm saying? Syria and Russia and all them is finna be part of the new Silk Road that the Asians, Chinese is creating to undermine the dollar. And Syria is in the way. You know what I'm saying? Syria was in the way. That was one of the reasons why they went to war with Syria, because Syria is right next to them Jews, and oh man, it's a whole bunch finna go down. You know what I'm saying? It's like Iran said that they resistance fighters, you know what I'm saying, it surrounded the Jewish state. Now those Israelites, that's in Dimona, they in a bad place. They in a bad position, because when the Jewish state enemies get the bombing, that's the first place that they gonna want to tear up, is the place where they develop the nuclear bombs and nuclear reactors and all that, to disable the power supply, you know what I'm saying, for them Jews. They're gonna be the first place that they start bombing. And how that those Israelites is there, and they can't be up under the protection of Almighty Yah, because they didn't go back to the promised land when he, you know what I'm saying, say we all gonna be free and brung out of captivity. And then they went back to the promised land believing in Jewish myths. I got this book. Ain't no way to escape it. There's no way to escape this. There's no way to escape the Israelite Brotherhood history. This brother, they leader, Ben Amin, you know what I'm saying, he done passed away. Look, the Messianic leader of the kingdom of Yah. He is not no Messianic leader of the kingdom of Yah. For the simple reason is that he believe in demigod worship. They believe in Yahshua the Messiah, Jesus. He try to paint a new face of what the heathens call Jesus. He called him Yahshua the Messiah. Yahshua Hebrew Messiah, or Jesus the Christian. Now, I done read this book a long time ago. So I got a lot of books. In this book, he try to justify the New Testament and want Israelites to think that the New Testament were Israelites. And I explain in countless videos how the New Testament people were not Israelites. The New Testament people were not Israelites. The Israelites got destroyed. The exiles, the little small percentage, got destroyed by the Greeks. By the Greeks in the settlers. Ashkenazi was still in the land that chased us into Africa, the 99%. Ashkenazi was still in the land under the name Scythian. They were still in the land. They drove the 99% into Africa during the Babylonian Wars. That's what the book of Jeremiah is about. They made up the Chaldean army. Ashkenazi did. Ashkenazi wasn't driven out the land. So Ashkenazi settled during the Babylonian wars in a part of our land called Beth Shan, what they call Scythopolis. Right? And he never left. He never left. So then he ain't never left. And then I'm been explaining how the exiles come back home from Babylon and how they disappeared real fast. And let me explain to you how you know that they disappeared real fast. It was because, if the Israelites, we got to use common sense with dealing with Israelite history. We ain't going off no spook history or dealing in spookism and stuff. Some old imaginary history that some old spiritual force and created. No, we ain't doing it like that. We got facts now. How about that the Israelites, the exiles that come back from the Mesopotamian captivity after the Babylonians were defeated by the Persians. The creator, Almighty Yah, called Cyrus like 152 years, before he was born. In the book of Isaiah, he mentions Cyrus by name. All right, Cyrus defeated the Babylonians. The exiles come back from the Babylonian captivity. Ashkenazi was still in the land. Under the name Scythian, and then he lived in Scythopolis. He lived in Scythopolis, and that's ancient Beth Shan, so he never went anywhere. Them killers are riding on horses that would cut Israelite head off and everything. So them people were still there. All right. The exiles couldn't have lived with them too long, knowing that they drove the 99% into Africa, Sahara, by way of Egypt. You got the book of Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, and they explained the exile history and how the exiles was having a hard time trying to hang on to the old covenant. Once the old covenant was broken by the 99%, it was just a matter of time, before it was over with, and the Israelites that come from Mesopotamia will be destroyed. And I'm explaining how they was destroyed during Greek times. That's how you get Greek pharaohs, from the Ptolemy and the Lycurgus, these Alexander's bodyguards. These Alexander's, the so-called great bodyguards, and how they descendants would become co-high priests in the promised land. Now, what Israelite gonna be around during the Greek time that would let Greeks become high priests in the temples? You know what I'm saying? So something happened to the exiles, and I explained how they was destroyed real fast. And then the people that destroyed them did not write about the exiles' destruction because they blended their history in then. We had abandoned our heritage to some Babylonian scribes. I keep explaining this over and over and over, how the Sephardims are Amorites, and how that they was responsible for Babylon's history. How they was responsible for Babylonians' history. These peoples right here. So you see, the people that went back to the promised land in the 70s didn't have the computer information and all the archives of history put on a computer and then use it at their disposal. These Israelites didn't have that when they went back to the promised land, and how they went back to the promised land under Jewish myths. And then that's why come they got stuck in the desert. Because if you look at Tanakh history and where we Israelites supposed to be in the last days, it's supposed to be in the mountainous region. And I'm explaining that. And then Almighty, y'all ain't gonna let no missiles come to where we at, because if we made it back to the promised land and our captivity come to an end, and Almighty Yah called us home, because then it's gonna start the enemy's weapons is going to be started to be turned into useful tools to help humanity and so forth. I'm going to read that in the scriptures. It's in there. But look, them Amorites, the Sepharvaim settled in our land during the Assyrian troubles when we were slipping on Egyptian religion. All right, Benjamin don't know nothing about the Sephardic Jews. He don't know nothing about the Sephardic Jews. He ain't never mentioned their name in none of their books. And these Israelites that made it back to the promised land, they up under the assumption that the Jews are the Khazars. Man, how they in left field. And that's why come they ain't effective and they can't represent us Israelites in captivity and how they don't have no power. Zero power. They barely making it over there. They barely making it over there. Yeah, Almighty y'all might be protecting them a little bit that they there, but at the same time, they didn't go back far as prophecy and so forth, and how that they not fulfilling prophecy, believing in demigods and Jesuses and Yawashes of any kind. Almighty Yah ain't sent no God's son or no messiahs after the covenant was broken. Malachi gonna be the last messenger, and then it was over with. Our history was cut off because we said that we was going into Egypt, Africa, Sahara to worship the Egyptian religion. What part of that you Israelites don't understand? You know, me I'm finna go into the Benjamin them history, Israelites, and then, you know, some of y'all, man, don't get sad and don't be offended and don't be hurt. This is just something we got to do. We got to put Benjamin in them Israelites that escaped captivity, man, in perspective, man, in order so they can be understood, in how that they are not fulfilling prophecy, because Almighty Yah not gonna let them be set next to a nuclear plant. They think setting them Israelites next to the nuclear plant is gonna protect the nuclear plant because they are Israelites. So therefore, Almighty Yah is gonna protect them and not let the nuclear bombs or the missiles from the other nations come and destroy the Jewish state nuclear power plants. No, that's false. That's false. That's false. Them Israelites is in danger, and them Jews set them in danger by setting them next to the nuclear plants when we supposed to be sitting in the mountainous regions. Man, if you go to Prophet Isaiah, man, I might even get the little part in where he even described the exile's destruction, the tenth that will fade away like a leaf, and how they was destroyed, and how I'm going to explain that the Israelites wasn't there during Greek times and Roman times as Benjamin and those Israelites been teaching, and how that's false history, because if the Israelites were exposed to Greek culture, Greek had a highly advanced civilization with buildings. Some of their architecture stuff is still around today. And if we had been exposed to that, even though the Greeks got their architectural information from the Egyptians, but how we Israelites would have absorbed some of that and then took those building techniques in Greek language and everything into Africa when Benjamin and members say that the Israelites was driven out in 70 AD when the Romans destroyed that Edomite temple that Herod built and so forth. So, you know, they got false history because we would have been speaking Latin, Greek, and everything in Africa if we would have been exposed to those cultures. I'm talking about millions of us. Millions of us was driven into Africa. So it would have been millions of us speaking Greek and Latin Romanist, the Romanist language. So that's how you know that they false, because when the enemies captured us, we didn't understand none of their languages. We didn't understand none of their languages when they captured us in the Sahara. And I explained over and over and over in countless videos how we people from the transatlantic slave trade are not are not the representation of all the Africans on the African continent being enslaved, and how that they only enslaved the Israelites from the Sahara. And I explained that our first derogatory name was Gramentian, and how that they even had slaves over here in the Americas addressed by such titles. But then I explained how we dealing with some extraordinary peoples that got control of Western civilization, the Amorites. We know that the Amorites founded America. The Amorite noble families that come from Italy, Spain, and Portugal, and them parts founded America when the conquistadors and so forth come to the West, and how that they was Sephardi Jews or crypto Jews and so forth. And then we already know the Sephardim, set foot in America and had the first synagogues, and how that they are the ancient Amorite families from Babylon, and how the Sephardims and the Sephardites and Sephardims are Amorites, and how that they got in our land in 722 BC. The Babylonian scribes, they was already Amorites. They was already present in the promised land, but how did they writers came and got in, and who controlled Mesopotamians' God's history, and how that they got a hold to our heritage when we went into Africa during the Babylonian wars in the book of Jeremiah, and how did they start writing false history during the Greek times after the exiles was destroyed, and how Benjamin and them don't even have a clue about none of this, and how did they think that the Jews and the other peoples in the promised land are Khazars, or they don't even actually explain who the people in the promised land are. And some of them accept them, some of those Benjamin followers accept them Jews, the Ashkenazi and Sephardis, as Israelites. Oh man, they real confused. But look, check this out. This is what Almighty Yah said through his messenger, Prophet Isaiah, what it'll be like when the Israelites return from captivity in the last days. Look, this is Isaiah 2. The word that Isaiah the son of Amos saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Elohim house shall be established in the top of the mountains. Look, in the top of the mountains, not in the desert. They cannot lead us from the desert. We got to be in the mountains parts, mean, and be established, and not in the desert. And it come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Elohim house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. It makes sense to put Almighty Yah temple or whatever structure we build, we Israelites build when we return back to the promised land. It makes sense to put it up on the top of a mountain, because the man be a high above everything, because the people gonna know that Almighty Yah prophecies had come to pass. He done brung his people home, and they're worshiping him. So yeah, that makes sense. Look, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. All nations not flowing to Demona, to the nuclear plants, where the Israelites said in the nuclear plants and stuff. You know what I'm saying? All nations are not flowing to it to worship. These Israelites are not being the representation that Almighty Yah want us to be for the nations to come to us to worship. They not being that. Man, ain't nobody following them. Ain't nobody following them. And then this brother, oh man, I feel so sad. So sad for the Israelites, man, because they believing in the history that this brother give them. He the historian over there. And he say that the Israelites lived during the Greek and the Roman times and ran into Africa, man, a cold-blooded way. He say that the Israelites went and swam across the Red Sea. You know, they didn't go into Egypt. You know what I'm saying? He real slick and crafty. He know that the Romans and the Greeks held them parts. So he gonna say that we snuck men around in the Sinai Mountain and swam across the Red Sea over into Africa, over into Nigeria and these parts where we was enslaved from, and the people that collaborated with our enemies and so forth, and how he say that we was reunited with them because they had African Israelite traits and all kind of old stuff. Man, it's all messed up, man. Man, it's all messed up. But look, let me read this again. The word that Isaiah the son of Amos saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Elohim house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall come and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Elohim, to the house of the Elohim of Jacob, and he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his path. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Elohim from Jerusalem. And look, and he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Look, O house of Jacob, come ye, and let us walk in the light of the Elohim. So when we go back, which makes sense, that because the people gonna know that the Jews, the people who call themselves the Jews, are not the Israelites. People gonna know that they not the Israelites, so therefore war gonna stop, because all wars going on today is to retain their strength over the nations, and propagating the Israelite lie, and how that they the chosen people and so forth, and how that veil to be torn away, and then how the nations will humble themselves because they'll see, hey, man, the prophecies that the prophets made concerning the Israelites and then come to pass. You see, but long as the people see or think that the Jews, the Sephardi's, and the Ashkenazi are the Israelites, then you ain't finna see prophecy come to pass. And therefore, man, it's all messed up, man. It's all messed up. You ain't gonna see prophecy come to pass, and they gonna keep war going. But if we Israelites come into heritage, and how that those prophecies will be fulfilled, because, they ain't gonna need no war no more, because Ashkenazi and the Sephardi's been fighting proxy wars against each other, and they won't have to keep that charade going. It'll be over with. So all wars are cease. All wars started basically in the Western culture is from the Sephardi and the Ashkenazi proxy wars against each other over the Israelite heritage. Now, some Israelites don't understand this. That's like Israelites don't understand that the Greeks and the Romans favored the Ashkenazi, and how the Greeks kind of like favored the Sephardi's. You know what I'm saying? Because, man, they was Mesopotamian bankers and so forth, and could create economy, capitalism. So, the Greeks was strongly influenced by the Sephardim, but then how Ashkenazi, with its peoples and kindreds come and uprooted them, in 70 AD, and then kind of like started the process of taking over the Israelite heritage from the Sephardims. They've been at war, and that's where all the religions come from. Judaism created by the Sephardims, Christianity created by Ashkenazi, and Islam gonna go back and be created by the Sephardims. I explained in the video how Muhammad didn't know who the real Israelites were during his time, and how he was heavily influenced and dealt with the Sephardim. So whatever religion come off the Sephardims wrongness, in me, you can't create no religion off the Sephardims wickedness, the people of the book, because they wasn't Israelites. All right, Hebrews, look, let's see it again. Let's go to Micah, and see what he got to say, man, about the Israelites being in the mountains. Look, and Micah was around at the same time that prophet Isaiah was around. Look, but in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountains of the house But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountains of the house of the Elohim shall be established in the top of mountains. Now, why would these prophets say this? Why would these prophets keep saying this? And the Israelite nation has not established a place of worship in the promised land since we were driven out during the Babylonian wars. There ain't been no place to worship in the mountains because we ain't been back since the Babylonian wars. And those who did come back in the 70s, they come back under Jewish history, Benjamin and them. They come back up under Jewish history, that false history, believing in demigods and all that stuff. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Elohim shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. And many nations shall come and say, Come and let us go up to the mountain of the Elohim and to the house of the Yah of Jacob, and he will teach us his way, and we will walk in his path. And then this prophet saying the same thing Prophet Isaiah saying. The same thing, so it's got to come to pass. And many nations shall come and say, Come and let us go up to the mountain of the Elohim and to the house of the Yah of Jacob, and he will teach us of his way, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of the Elohim from Jerusalem, and he shall judge among many people, and rebuke strong nations afar off, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. And nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore, but they shall sit every man under his vine and under his fig tree, and none shall make them afraid, for the mouth of the Elohim of hope has spoken it. Look, none shall make them afraid. These Israelites in the desert got to be afraid because the enemy is, man, all kind of bombs is coming towards them and gonna be coming towards them. Gonna be coming towards them soon because our captivity winding down. And then we know that the Western culture has lost control of its currency, and how fed currency is finna vanish, and how that they going back to a metallic metal substance, gold, and how that's finna be the #1 currency in the world again, and how the paper finna fade out, and how that the people who control the Israelite heritage are the founders of the Fed currency. So they finna lose their power. Their power is being lost. Look, let's listen to this Israelite right here. You know what I'm saying? I played this one time, but let's listen, man, to how far off they gone, man, and they ain't got no truth. They ain't got no truth, and they over in the desert next to nuclear plants. So you know that they ain't got no truth, and how that they ain't believing in Tanakh history, and how that they should have known to tell them Jews to put them in the mountainous part, men to start off with, and not in the nuclear, next to no nuclear plants and so forth. Watch, listen to this.
Time of the Roman occupation, you had already gone through, we had already gone through numerous captivities. And so when you look at the Roman occupation, that was simply a very violent and physical destruction.
Look, that's messed up, Hebrews. We wasn't even around during the Roman times. That's sad. That's sad. Like I said, if we was around during Roman times, then we would have took the Romanist language into Africa with Greek, Roman, and all that, and you would have seen a presence of that in the Sahara since we was left alone till the transatlantic slave trade started. See, man, it's false, man. And then I explain how that this Yahshua, the so-called Yahshua or Jesus couldn't have been an Israelite. No matter if they paint him black. No matter if they paint him black, how he couldn't have been an Israelite. I explained how the Sephardim had pigmentation. They got pigmentation. The Sephardim do. And then, man, I'll show you some images of some of them with pigmentation. Man, the Sephardims had pigmentation. So, if you see some Jews claiming the Israelite heritage in 70 AD and in other parts of the world, claiming the Israelite heritage is going to be the Sephardim or Ashkenazi people, because the real Israelites abandoned our heritage during the Babylonian Wars for Egyptian religion. And how we wasn't around in the Roman times, but how this Israelite, believe in Jewish myths. Like I say, they haven't revised their history and their doctrine since the computer age been out, and how that they going off Jewish myths that they done picked up books and read in the 60s and 50s and so forth, and then how they just, latched on to that history and ain't never let it go. And this brother's supposed to be a historian. He on record with these lies, as I said before. He on record with these lies.
Destruction, and when that occurred, the temple, the smashing of the Hebraic idea, the hiding of the scrolls down at Qumran, etc.
Now, this messed up. This brother, as well as Ben Amin, they on record for saying that the Israelites went and hid some books in a cave. The Quran, the Babylonians, them Edomites who held control of the Promised Land since the Greeks got in and the exiles were destroyed, and how that when they temple was destroyed by Ashkenazi, by proxy, by the Romans, and how that those Edomites went and took their books and hid them in the caves. But how did these Israelites think that was us hiding them books in them Edomite caves and stuff? Man, they all lost. Listen.
We went into exile. Now, logically, if you have a military power, an oppressive military power coming from the north, it wouldn't make good common sense to flee to the north. And so our position is that many, if not most, of the Israelites that remain, and particularly Judah, went south. We migrated down both banks of the Red Sea. We migrated down the Nile River.
Look, swimming across the Red Sea. Look, swimming across the Red Sea. That's swimming across the Red Sea. You see how he didn't say that we went in that way? You know what I'm saying? Through the way that the Israelites traditionally would go into Egypt and so forth, and how he say that we swim men across the waters, the Red Sea, and went off into Africa. Man, that's false history, man. That's false history, Israelites. That's false history. We wasn't around during the Roman times. We would have been exposed to Greek culture for 300 something years. Man, the Romans got in 50 BC. And man, we'd have been exposed to the Greek culture, man, for 200 something years. Impossible to get that culture and that language and that stuff up off you. And the Greeks were the dominant rulers of the Promised Land. I explained how the Ptolemies and the Lycimus even had, man, a high priest, a co-high priest was a Lycimus. You know what I'm saying? That's Alexander the Great bodyguard. And why would the Israelites let a Lycimus be a high priest in the temple unless something happened to the exiles? And I'm going to read what Prophet Isaiah said, that the exiles would be destroyed, the 10th. All right. This brother kind of, gone and stuff. He on record for this, saying that we swam across the Red Sea to get back into Africa in 70 AD. And her temple would be the third temple, because her took that temple completely down. That wasn't the second temple. That was a third temple on the land, and the Edomites had control of it. Her was an Edomite.
Across North Africa and then down into the southern areas, into what is now called the western coast. And so when you look in Ghana, for example, you will find that the Ashanti...
Look, he done bypassed the Sahara. He done bypassed the whole Sahara where we Israelites were. In southern Libya, at the top of Chad, in Niger. We was in them parts. We was in them parts, and that's where they took us to. You know what I'm saying? That's where they captured us from. Like I explained, wasn't no Egyptians, no Ethiopians. You know, Ethiopians been Christians for a long time. And wasn't no Ethiopians, wasn't no Watusis, wasn't no Berbers, wasn't no Pygmies, what a whole host of Africans never made it to captivity. And how did they focus on the group of peoples in the Sahara called the Gramentians? As I explained, it was Gramentians in the Americas on the plantation. One of them even helped the enemies cure smallpox. All right. He said that we went down. Look, he even got Liberia on there. You know what I'm saying? And the Liberians dogged them out when they come back. You know, going through Africa trying to get back to the promised land. Look, Ghana. Man, this junk is crazy.
Dante, the Ewe, the Yoruba, and Igbo in Nigeria, present-day Nigeria. All of these different ethnic groups have Hebrewisms, what one scholar called Hebrewisms, cultural similarities to them.
Man, them folks probably did trade with us and picked up some of our habits long ago. And then we know that the Sephardim, you know, I got overproof. I even got videos where, you know, the Jews be deleting them videos ASAP. Soon as they see me talk about some black Jews, how they delete them videos and don't want the Israelite community to learn that our enemies want us to come in under these black Jews that practice Judaism, and for us to claim an Israelite heritage from that point. And then how did the Jews converted them Africans long time ago from the Sephardim trade routes into Africa. You know, the Sephardim had trade routes into Africa, all over Africa, and then they trade routes would be called, you know, the Randanites. You know, I got videos going into that, how the Randonite traders, Randonite Jewish traders traded all over, everywhere. There's plenty of videos with their history. But man, this brother, they in a bad shape. They in bad shape, and how they gonna have to humble themselves and listen to the Israelite Brotherhood in order to get some correct history and so forth. Then we become effective and stuff. That's like I need all the Israelites, man, to start, you know, supporting me, man, and you know what I'm saying, hooking up with me, man, to try to, you know, us get connected so we can move forward. You know what I'm saying, with this Israelite struggle and bring it to a conclusion, an end. This Israelite struggle need to come to an end. We already got correct history. You know what I'm saying? And look, I be talking to some of the right individuals that represent, you know what I'm saying, with what they call, you know, Judaism or the promised land. You know what I'm saying? And how, you know, some of these folks, you know what I'm saying, they're like him. Oh man, he got a serious stake in the promised land. He got a serious stake in the promised land, and it's a few of them. It's a few of them. And then how did they gonna have to get up with the Israelite Brotherhood? And how did they gonna have to get up with the Israelite Brotherhood? They gonna have to get up with the Israelite Brotherhood, and we're gonna have to talk, and we're gonna have to settle this Israelite issue some kind of way. It's gonna have to come to an end. These are the bankers. And you know, they control the Fed currency and so forth. And how we're gonna have to come to a some type of conclusion and agreement, and how that they gonna have to work through the Israelite Brotherhood. They gonna have to work through the Israelite Brotherhood. Man, it's just the way it's gonna have to be, because all those other Israelite organizations, they don't even have a clue what's going on and how we could bring peace. You know, it's like the Illuminati want to unite the world, and us have peace in the world. Well, the only way to have peace in the world is to bring this Israelite issue to a settlement. You know, then we can have some peace in this world. You know, we can have some peace in the world. And matter of fact, that's what's going to save the Western civilization from being destroyed, the Jews from being destroyed, is if they embrace us Israelites and then let us go back to the promised land in the mountainous region. Other than that, they set for destruction. They set for destruction. All right, then let's listen back to this Israelite again. Listen.
The ancient biblical Israelites, circumcision on the eighth day, linguistic connections, name similarities, separation.
But no curses. No curses. Now the people in Nigeria and Ghana, now they try to say that we represent them, but how that those folks are still there doing those traits, and how those people couldn't have been Israelites based upon the curses. You know, I explained, man, if you didn't get on no ship and took into a strange land, and all the curses come down on you, how you ain't finna be no Israelite, and that how your Jewishness gonna come off the Randonite trade routes, you know, that the Jews did off into Africa. This right here, and then these are some Sephardims right here. Those are Sephardims. That's not us. Those are not people from the transatlantic slave trade, but how that they got pigmentation, and how Israelites been fooled by them for a long time, thinking that they was Israelites. And those are the people that Ashkenazi chased away in 70 AD when he destroyed Herd Edomite temple. Well, those Sephardims and Sephardis who are Amorites and who had degrees of pigmentation will flee men across North Africa to Spain and Italy. Those are the ancient Amorite families that come to the Americas. You know, those are the ancient Amorite families that come from Mesopotamia, that settled in our land in 722 BC. I'm going to show that. But how did those Sephardims would go off into Africa, and they would lead their traits. Here's they trade routes all over. Wherever you see them names, and that's where they did trade at. And they most heavily did trade, men in West Africa. You know? So these Israelites, man, they don't know, man. They don't know.
Cycle and after childbirth, etc., etc. Well, our whole presence in America was part of a divine chastisement. America for us could only be a land of captivity. And so 2019 actually marked officially the end of a 400-year presence in America. And that's 400 years.
Jamestown, from the first slave ship.
Arriving in Jamestown, right. And
she's sending them out. Look.
2020 marks a very...
Look, also, when them Israelites left in the 70s, how the system hurry up and got a figure like Jim Jones, man, to take the Israelites down to Guyana and murder them, and to try to put the impression in any Israelite man that if you ever try to leave with somebody that's supposed to be a leader trying to take you somewhere, is that he gonna take you somewhere and murder you. You know, immediately after those Israelites left the flames and from getting burnt up and made it over in Africa, the enemies hurry up and come with Jim Jones to try to give the Israelites the impression that if you leave with any leaders, talking about that they gonna leave you and take you somewhere, that you gonna get done like that. And we know that those peoples that got done like that believed in Jesus, demigod. So that was gonna probably happen to them. All right, listen.
Very, very significant period, just for Africans in America, but for all of us globally, humanity globally. See,
because they ain't represent those Israelites that made it back to the promised land are not the representation for the Israelite community, and how that they doctrines don't line up with Tanakh prophecies and so forth, and how they believe in demigods and so forth. Listen to him. Here you go again.
Thousands of dedicated followers in jurisdictions the length and breadth of the Americas and the Caribbean, Europe, and Africa. I'd like to welcome you to this special webcast address from Ben-Ami, the anointed spiritual leader. But we first wanted to...
Ben-Ami cannot be no appointed spiritual leader leading the Israelites in the desert next to the nuclear plants, and then believing in Jesus and Messiahs and Yahshua's, and how on Almighty Yah is our Savior and so forth. So he can't be the leader, and he never was the leader. He's the leader for them, but he ain't the leader for the Israelite community, and he ain't the spiritual leader for the Israelite community. That's like I was reading this book right here. Oh man, this sister is lost and confused. Look, the racial and ethnic diversity of the Jewish people. Yeah, for those who embrace Judaism, the religion, but if you trying to say the ethnic diversity of the Israelites, that's impossible, because we not all these peoples. We not all these peoples, and we never was all these peoples. And how I prove over and over how the whole Israelite nation ran into Africa to do the Egyptian religion, and how that it wasn't no Israelites, going to these parts and all them other parts during the Babylonian wars. And that's the only time that we was really driven into Africa during the Babylonian wars, and that how that history wasn't documented by our enemies and so forth. But we are not the diversity men of all these peoples, and these peoples believe in Judaism, so they are ethnic diversity. You know what I'm saying? They got ethnic diversity when you believe in a religion, but because a religion's supposed to cross color barriers and so forth, or racial barriers and so forth. You got people of all different type of ethnic groups participating in religions and so forth. So that's where they fit in. But these peoples are confused. And this lady who wrote this book, man, I should have marked off some of the pages how she thinks that the Sephardim are the Israelites, and she basing her Israelite heritage off the Sephardi Jews. Off the Sephardi Jews is what this lady basing her Israelite heritage off of. And look, then what a coincidence! Look, man, I got to reading, and then I come across Funyuns Capers, and I see Funyuns Capers do Judaism. Funyuns Capers do Judaism, so they fit into this ethnic diversity stuff. But them peoples are not the representation of the Israelites. They are not. They are not the representation of the Israelites. The representation of the Israelites is the people from the transatlantic slave trade, and how all these peoples are not descendants of the transatlantic slave trade. But look here, this lady get to talking about Funyuns Capers and so forth. The man, I once heard Rabbi Funyuns Capers at Beth Young. I went up there, meaning kicked it with the brother. Man, I got a video. You know what I'm saying? Look, that's the brother right there. Me and him. You know what I'm saying? That's Funyuns Capers and me right there. And how this brother do Judaism. He do Judaism, Jewish history. You know what I'm saying? And then look, man, I had to make a difference. You know what I'm saying? And show the difference in between Jewish history and Israelite history, and how that those peoples follow Judaism do the Jewish history and not the Israelite history. And people got to understand that. But this lady right here who wrote this book think that the Jewish religion represent the Israelites. Oh man, all confused, confusion everywhere, confusion everywhere. But those Israelites that made it back to the promised land are not the spiritual guidance for the rest of the Israelite community. And like I said, Benjamin believe in demigods. If you read this book, man, no matter how he try to dress it up, Yahshua the Messiah, all he doing is taking the New Testament history and painting it black. That's all the Israelites been doing, and how the Israelites wasn't around during Greek times. I can show you. The minute I said that I was gonna show her about it, just what Prophet Isaiah said, what happened to the exiles that they come back from the Babylonian captivity. And if you go to Isaiah 6, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Elohim sitting upon the throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. And above it stood the Sephims, which one had 6 wings, and twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. And one cried one to another, and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Elohim of hosts. The whole earth is filled of his glory. And the post of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Then said I, Woe unto me, for I am undone. I know that's right, he was scared. But because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips, for my eyes have seen the King, the Elohim of hosts. Man, I bet you that was dreadful. Then flew one of the Sephims unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the thong from the altar, and he laid it upon the mouth, and said, Lo, this had touched thy lips, and then iniquity is taken away, and then sin purged. All right, he finna tell him what's finna happen to the Israelite nation. Also, I heard the voice of the Elohim saying, Whom shall go? And whom shall I send, and whom will go for us? Then said I, Here am I, send me. And he said, Go and tell this people, Hear ye indeed, but understand not. See ye indeed, but perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert and be healed. We used to pull that act all the time when destruction finna come up on us. We'll say, we sorry, Almighty, y'all forgive us. And then when the destruction go past us, we'll go right back to the wickedness. And we did that for a long time. Whereas this time, he said it couldn't happen. Then said I, Elohim, how long? And he answered, Until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without men, and the land be utterly desolate. All right, that happened during the Babylonian Wars, when the whole Israelite nation was driven out the promised land for saying that we wanted to do the demigod worship and so forth. And if you go to the book of Jeremiah, which is going to be our last prophet for the 99%, it's the last prophet from the 99%. It did how we was driven off the land, and the land became empty. This is when Ashkenazi, the Scythians, come into the land, and they settled in the land and was never driven out. They was never driven out. And then they got driven out when Islam was created. You know what I'm saying? They had to get somewhere in 600 something AD, but before then, Ashkenazi been there and been absorbed into the Israelite heritage, and people was thinking that they was Israelites at that time because the exiles got destroyed. And then the people we abandoned our heritage to been claiming the Israelite heritage. They even come to the Passover dinner with the Sephardics. They came to Passover dinner under King Hezekiah. So they was already in our heritage 134 years before Ashkenazi pull up in 588 BC. 722 BC to 588 BC, the Sephardim was in our heritage. And then when we get driven out into Africa during the Babylonian Wars to make the land empty, then they had our heritage. And those are the people that Ben Ami and them think was Israelites that was in the promised land during the Roman times, in Greek times. Look, Jeremiah 44. This said the Elohim of hosts, the Yah of Israel, ye have seen all the evil that I have brought upon Jerusalem and upon all the cities of Judah. And behold, this day they are a desolation, and no man dwelleth therein. So this come to pass what prophet Isaiah had prophesied about nobody being in the land. Then I said, Elohim, how long? And he answered, Until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate. And the Elohim have removed men far away, and there be a great forsaking in the midst of the land. The great forsaking in the midst of the land was us Israelites going into Africa saying that we was going to do Egyptian religion. We never returned from out of Africa. That's how you know we the Israelites, because we fulfilled the curses. We fulfilled the curses, not the Africans when we was captured in Africa and took to captivity in a strange land called the Americas. You know, all right. That's us forsaking the forsaken in the midst of the land. We never come back out of Africa when the little 1%, the 10th, the faded leaf come back from the Mesopotamia area, and then how that they was destroyed, and how we never come back out of Africa to be reunited with them from doing the Egyptian Queen of Heaven worship. Look, then all the men which knew that their wives had burned incense unto other gods, and all the women that stood by a great multitude, even all the people that dwelt in the land of Egypt in Pathros, answered Jeremiah, saying, As for the word that thou hast spoken unto us in the name of the Elohim, we will not hearken unto thee, but we will certainly do so whatever thing go forth out of our own mouth, to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings, our princes, in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then had we plenty of victuals, and were well, and saw no evil. But since we left off to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things, and have been consumed by the sword and by famine. So those Israelites that went into Africa, the whole Israelite nation went into Africa to do the Egyptian religion at 99%. And that little one, the 10th that went to the Mesopotamia area, that was captured and taken by the Babylonians to the Mesopotamian area, that 10th, when they come back, they was destroyed. They was the leaf that faded. Look, and the Elohim have removed men far away, and there be a great forsaking in the midst of the land. That's us going into Egypt, do that Egyptian religion. But yet in it shall be a tenth, and it shall return. That's the exiles. And shall be eaten as a teal tree, and as a oak whose substance is in them when they cast their leaves. So the holy seed shall be the substance thereof. And they got destroyed real fast during the Greek times. That 10th, that the Sephardians and Ashkenazi wasn't going to write about them destroying the exiles, because that's when they history merged in. As I explained, immediately you see the Greek pharaohs, Greek kid pharaohs with Israelite titles and stuff. Greek folks with Israelite titles as high priests, so that 10th, the exiles had to fade off, just like Prophet Isaiah said, in order for the Greeks to claim Israelite heritage and be co-high priests. See, Benjamin them didn't know nothing about this. They don't know nothing about this. This is crucial. We got to understand this. We got to understand this. That's why come they can't be the spiritual leaders for the Israelite community. And only the Israelite brotherhood men can fill that spot, as the Rothschilds are flocking behind me. This is where Ashkenazi settled. In the Discopolis city. Scythopolis was the head of place. And those would be the peoples that Jesus intermingled with, showing that Benjamin didn't have no understanding of New Testament history and so forth. All right, I can show that the whole Israelite nation went into Africa during the Babylonian Wars, because King Hezekiah had everybody at home, and King Josiah had everybody at home. That's King Hezekiah's great-grandson. And we will go into Africa after that, which is the book of Jeremiah. All the tribes, and how it wasn't no 10 lost tribes and so forth. I explained that in so many videos. But Benjamin and his followers cannot be the spiritual leaders for the Israelite community, for the simple reason is that they don't know no history, and that they following off Jewish myths, and that they living in the deserts, next to nuclear plants. And Almighty Yah didn't want that for the Israelites. So they can't be the spiritual leaders or spiritual guide for the Israelite community because they don't have no truth. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood.